Hey Siri, unlock the front door.
Fingers down my spine. Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your
to today's vlog post. So today I have a pretty interesting topic that has been on my mind for the last week, and I do apologise before I go on for the lack of updates lately. That is simply a result of me having been quite busy with my day job, and I've therefore been unable to produce videos because I've been travelling all over the country. However, it has given me time to think, because I've been travelling interstate and been subject to different laws in each state. When I was coming home, I started thinking about defects, and in particular defects that apply to New South Wales. So what I thought would be a great topic for today's vlog, or this week's vlog rather, would be what is defectable in New South Wales. I spent quite a bit of time researching this topic, and I must say I was actually astonished myself. You would be, it's actually unbelievable what you can get a defect notice for in New South Wales. So, on defects, I also had a chat with my missus about defects, and you know, for those of you that don't know my wife, she is Japanese, and what a lot of people do think about Japan is that their laws around defects and what is and is not legal or street legal, everybody seems to think that there is a big difference between the two, but the reality is that after speaking to my wife, who is in the drift scene over there and has done a lot of driving and competitive driving herself, the differences between the law in Japan, by the book law, and the law in Australia by the book law, and I'm obviously going on New South Wales law, is that there really isn't much difference at all. What it boils down to is the individual police officers. Now in Australia, and very specifically in New South Wales, and even more specifically in the Central Coast, the police officers take defects really seriously. So despite the fact that the laws between Japan and Australia might be very, very similar on what is and is not street legal, the police in Japan kind of don't give a shit, you know, if you modify the crap out of your car. They definitely don't fine you. At worst, you'll get a warning. They're more focused on things that would be considered criminality, like DUI, driving offences that put other people in danger, and kind of defects that doesn't really come into it. So that's the primary difference between Japan and Australia. As far as the baseline law is concerned, it's almost identical. So that moves us on to what is defectable in Australia and New South Wales. And what I'll do is just quickly take one step back and bring to light why this subject has been on my mind, first and foremost. before you ask, yes, I am going to the hairdresser, and yes, it is for myself. Just arriving at the barber now. I will be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Just go and chop off some of this hair.
Fingers down my spine. Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers? Fingers. Fingers down my spine. Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Fingers down my spine. Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers? Fingers. Fingers down my spine. Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers?
Let's start with the external stuff. Now, with regards to appearance, or the external appearance of the car, or the image, if you have very, very lewd or, strangely obnoxious, shall we say, rude or offensive decals on the side of the car, you can be asked to remove those and you can be issued a defect notice for that. With regards to panel work, providing the panel is bolted on to the vehicle, you can legally remove it and replace it with anything that's made of plastic or carbon, so steel parts affecting the image that are bolted on can be removed and replaced if need be. The image of the car also moves on to things like lights. They've got to be compliant, so you've got to have red for braking, red for headlights, you've got to have white for reverse, you've got to have orange or clearly orange for indicators. So if you change out the tail lights, that can result in a defect if it's not compliant. Headlights are the same, too bright, too high, can get you in trouble. Fog lights that are on all the time can get you in trouble. So all of that stuff kind of impacts me. Now fortunately I am compliant there. My fog lights are not on. The DRL bulbs on the other hand are, but they aren't fogs, so they don't affect the safety of other drivers. And my headlights, although they are LED, they are mapped to the stock position, so they the only thing that's been changed there is the bulb, and they're within the limit. They're not too bright, so I'm okay on that front. Ride height. So that brings us on to the next category. Now, ride height is a contentious one. Anything under 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters is a defect. So in my particular case, I am just on the limit. That is about 12 centimeters or 120 mil. So I'm okay there. We talked about wheel poke a minute ago. So with my wheels, if I just align the camera very closely to the side of the vehicle there, you can see that despite the fact that it's less than half a finger of poke, that rubber is poking out of my guard, which means I am going to qualify for a defect. Unfortunately, with the type of rubber that I've got on, I can't do anything about it. The other thing about, or the strange thing about the tyres is that you are allowed to replace your wheels with tyres that are over 25 millimeters, larger than stock, but anything greater than that, defect. So if you've got an 8.5 inch, which is the stock STI width, and you change it for 9.5, which is what I have, you are okay. Now, but in my particular case, the offset is aggressive, therefore the wheel pokes, therefore defect. Alright, moving on. So, window tint. 35% is the legal limit for the front windows, these guys here. The front windshield or windscreen can't have any tint at all. The rears, as far as I'm aware, there is no limit to the rears. That can be quite private. And the back as well, 35% is the legal limit. The exhaust, as we said before, 90 decibels at 3,500 RPM. Clearance of 100 millimeters under the car. So with the exhaust, now in my particular case, I've got a NVIDIA Q300, which is quite a quiet exhaust, so I won't go over the decibel limit. But other things that affect the exhaust is mufflers. If you've got a muffler delete, you will get a defect. If you've got a straight pipe, you will get a defect. If your wastegate does not join the existing exhaust, you will get a defect. So a screamer pipe, for example, illegal. So let's jump under the hood quickly and find out how illegal my car is under the hood. Alright, so a lot of people say that a catch can is illegal. Now, fortunately, a catch can is okay providing it is completely sealed and doesn't have any venting to atmosphere. So in my particular case, my catch can, which is just here, is legal. I'm not going to get any strife with that. If you have an air oil separator, which does ventilate to atmosphere, illegal, defect. Wash bottle, so we talked about that already. Wash bottle must have water in it. Now you can actually get a defect if the water level's low, which is also ridiculous, but if you have nothing in it, defect. So intake. Now the law is you can put modifications onto your intake. That's generally not too bad. In Victoria, the legislation's a lot worse, but in New South Wales the intake modifications are not too restrictive. This is a controversial one. So the blow-off valve, if you have a blow-off valve that ventilates to atmosphere, you'll get a defect. So you want to make sure that you have a blow-off valve or a recirculating valve that does not vent. So even though my blow-off valve is closed, if I was pulled over, I'd get a defect. A couple of surprising ones that I had no idea about. Engine capacity. So if your engine capacity is greater than 20% over stock, you'll get a defect. So in my case, I've got a 2.6 litre, stock is 2.5, so I'll be okay. But if I was a 3 litre, I'd get a defect. Just back on the intake quickly. So although the fact that the intake can be modified and the intercooler can be modified and that sort of thing, that's fine in New South Wales. If it affects emissions, defect. Alright, so on on power, if the power is up, you have to improve your brakes. So if you've got stock brakes on a car that has more power, you can get a defect. So basically, if Officer Slee pulls me over and he sees a big radiator and he sees a aftermarket intercooler, he can safely assume I have more power, therefore I have to have new brakes. Now it's very difficult to see if my brakes are, or if most people's brakes have or have not been changed, but in my particular case my brakes are slotted, and that's fairly obvious. The stock brakes on an STI are not, so I should be okay there. But then again, that is the officer making the assumption that I have more power. Again, it's difficult on the side of the road to assess whether a car has more power. The assumption must be made, obviously, if they see performance parts. With regards to boost, now this is a surprising one too. If you have a bigger turbo or are pushing more boost than stock, you've also got to have better brakes, which is an odd one. And I guess it can be assessed on the side of the road because you do have a boost gauge that has a maximum output, and if Officer Slee knows what the stock boost is and he sees the max boost on your gauge is over that, and you do have standard brakes or obviously standard brakes or unobviously modified brakes, you could get a defect. Another one that surprised me, suspension modification. So suspension's obviously quite an important part when it comes to safety on your car, but unbelievably it's the only thing that's you can't really get a defect for. So you can modify the absolute shit out of your suspension, providing the travel's okay, providing you've got reasonable clearance on your wheels and it's not rubbing, providing your ride height is not too low. Suspension's fine. You can put sway bars on, strut braces, new shocks, new springs, new bump stops, whatever you like. Unbelievably, suspension kind of doesn't wind up with a defect at all, which I just couldn't believe that, because suspension, you know, if you're talking about the 5 things that can cause a defect, safety is one of them, and suspension and safety go hand in hand. So that's an odd one, don't get it, but anyway, at least I'm legal there. Alright, so just very quickly to sort of cover the last thing, which is the frame and the subframe. What I read, it was a little bit complicated, but providing you do not drill or affect the frame or subframe, modifying it to remove material, and you've only added material like bracing or reinforcement or drive shaft tunnel or tunnel loops or anything like that, the frame should be okay. As soon as you start to remove material from the frame or drill into the frame or subframe, attach permanent fixtures to the frame or subframe, weld the frame or subframe, you could get a defect. But in most cases, when you're modifying a car, you're not destroying your frame or subframe, you're usually strengthening it, which means you're adding material, which means you shouldn't get a defect for that sort of thing. Also very hard to prove on the street, you kind of got to get under the car, and if the car's as low as mine, that's not going to happen. Alright, so that kind of winds up the video for now. The only there is a quick there is a quick and easy way to remember all this stuff, surprisingly enough, which I kind of figured out when I was doing my research. Now, I did quite a bit of research, but when I put all the things together and I grouped the categories and I ran through it all and sort of covered off each group or element, I found a really quick and easy way to remember whether or not you're going to get a defect.
Now what I'll do is I'll shut the hood, I'll jump in the car, we'll head off, and I'll read you in onto that in a moment.
Okay, so I'm back in the car and we're just going to head off. I've just set up my my voice recorder because I know that the bloody GoPro is completely useless when it comes to some idiots decided to stop the car right behind me with absolutely no idea what he's doing. Do you know how to drive, mate? What the fuck are you doing? Oh, they've decided to pull over on the side of the road right behind me to change drivers, which is really clever. With zero consideration for the fact that there's 3 parking spots next to me, which would have been the wise thing to do. What the fuck are they doing? Oh god! The guy can't park. The guy doesn't know how to reverse park, so he had to stop to change drivers to reverse park. Oh crikey! You alright? Oh, for fuck's sake, you make a video for everybody. Alright, we're on our way. So, what's the best way to remember whether or not the mods you're doing on your car are going to result in a defect? Now, fortunately, there's an acronym for this. there's an acronym, you wouldn't believe it, but there is a fantastic acronym for remembering the categories that will apply to any defect notice. And it's a good one. So there's obviously power, anything that affects power, anything that affects emissions, anything that affects noise, anything that affects the image or appearance of the outside of the car, and safety. The best way to remember whether or not the mods that you're doing potentially may result in a defect notice is to remember that that Officer Slee will get your penis. So power, emissions, noise, image, safety. It's a good way to remember it. I couldn't find a better way to figure out how to remember it. So if you just remember penis, then you'll be okay. Just keep penis on your brain when you're doing mods. Alright, so that sums up today's vlog post. I hope you all liked it. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. If you like the content that I'm producing, please comment, please subscribe to the channel. It's difficult for me to know and assess whether or not it's a good idea to continue doing these, and if I get some positive feedback, well then it will make it easier for me to go ahead and put the time and effort in to making these videos, which I must say, it's not something that takes 5 minutes. It is quite a time consuming process to film the videos, the B-roll, do the editing, upload it, thumbnails, all that sort of business. So please let me know if you like it, if you find it valuable, and if you do, I'll continue to do these posts. The aim is twice weekly. Because I'm travelling a lot for work at the moment, I'll only unfortunately be able to do it once every week for the time being, but I will resume a normal schedule in April. And what I may try and do is, if I have a day or two here and there, I might try and rack up a few videos, file them off so that I can upload them whilst I am away overseas in Japan. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all on the other side.